Great. So, welcome everyone. My name is Mericka McCabe. I'm a scientific engagement manager from Protocols IO based out of New York. And thank you for joining me today for the introduction to Protocols IO. So, some quick housekeeping. We will be recording the webinar. There is a PowerPoint that I'm showing, and these slides, as well as the webinar, will go. The webinar recording will go to all of the registrants and anyone who's attended. So you'll receive this recording and these slides later. You can also enable closed captioning if you'd like to use this, and we have translations available through closed captioning, which I'll go over in the next slide. We'll have Q&A at the end. Feel free to add your questions in the Q&A box or chat during the webinar, and I'll hopefully have time to get to everything at the end. There will also be a webinar feedback survey at the end where you can suggest any feedback for future webinars and also maybe topics that you wish we had more time to cover. And we have other webinars. Today is an introduction, so this will be a really brief overview of protocols.io and how to get started on the platform. You can also watch our tips and tricks webinar for more details of once you're kind of familiar and using the platform a lot, and then you can also request a one-on-one demo at that site there. If you'd like to enable captions, please click the Show Captions button that should be present at the bottom of your screen. You'll then be prompted to enable translations, and you can set the language, and captions should auto-translate to the language of your choice, and it does a relatively good job from what I've been told. So for those of you who do research of any kind, you might be familiar with the idea that sufficient information for repeating experiments is often lacking. Methods are lost or not reported in sufficient detail, and people really struggle to be able to follow what others have done. This is across really all fields. So we have here a few kind of silly tweets from biologists, physicists, and others. And I really love the center one where you'll see a paper that says devices were fabricated as previously described. You go back to that reference from 2 years ago. It says as previously described. You go back to that reference from 2 years ago. 2 years before that, it says previously described, and so on. And eventually devices were fabricated with conventional methods, and you're at a paper where the conventional methods were almost 20 years ago and probably aren't today's conventional methods, and you have no idea what was actually done in the experiment. So sufficient information for repeating experiments is lacking, and this leads to the challenge of reproducibility. In 2025, this Nature paper showed that low producibility really showed a weakness in how we're documenting science, how we're communicating science, and how we're producing science. And there's some action that's necessary where we need to openly share data. But even beyond sharing data, we need to openly share protocols, because if you're sharing your data, but someone doesn't understand how you got those results, what methods you used, the data is kind of meaningless. And this isn't just about others reproducing your work. A lot of the time, it's you who needs to reproduce your work. So this is a really great article from 2016 about your most valuable collaborator being future you. And I really love this note of you mostly collaborate with yourself, and me from 2 months ago never responds to email. So it's a bit of work to document your methods, but if you document them clearly now while you're doing them, you'll save yourself time later, and you won't be questioning what you did that actually was successful. And the work will be done when it comes time to share the methods with others beyond yourself. So one of the ways that you can easily document your methods is with protocols.io. Our mission is to make it easy to share method details before, during, and after publication. We really want to be with you through the life cycle of your research so you can start working on your methods, developing them, documenting exactly what you're doing at all stages. And then when the time comes to publish and share your results, you can share those methods easily and openly. There's two sides to Protocols.io. It's a tool that exists both on the private side and the public side. On the private side, it's an experimental workflow tool. You can easily document and track method tweaks and evolutions, collaborate with your lab or with select collaborators globally, and enhance protocol drafting and troubleshooting with some of our AI-empowered tools. There's over 90,000 private protocols that you can add to. And then there's the Open Method repository, which hosts over 26,000 public protocols currently. It allows you to share methods openly with a citable DOI so that you can get credit for your methods and development. You can link methods to papers and publications, and you can discover and reuse the methods of others. On Protocols IO, for the private side, we have an open research plan where you can have two private protocols. And then we have premium protocols.io where you can have unlimited private protocols, unlimited workspaces, allowing you to work with specific groups of people. And often, premium protocols.io is offered through universities. So you can go to protocols.io/for-institutions, scroll down to the page and check in this box here if your organization already has premium access to Protocols.io. And if you're in any of the countries that are Group A countries in blue here, we've now partnered with Research for Life, which provides free access to protocols.io for any scientists working in these countries. And you can let me know if you have any questions about how to get access to that. Protocols on protocols.io are dynamic and interactive. They're built for modern science, so they're not meant to just be a static PDF or Word document that you might print out and tuck away in a drawer and then discover 3 years later that you've actually been following a completely different method than what you had originally printed out. You can include tables and plate maps and other components. We have AI-assisted protocol drafting and troubleshooting, run records that allow you to walk through the protocol as if it's a checklist and document any changes that you've made, either in your mobile, tablet, or computer. Versioning and tracking allows you to track changes to your protocol over time or variants of other protocols over time. You can also comment and interact. So here we have a nice example from this cut and run protocol where a user commented asking a question to the author, Dr. Stephen Henikoff, and Dr. Henikoff responded, and anyone's able now to view that interaction. And if they have the same question, they can see that comment and the response directly from the author. There's also controlled collaboration across workspaces, and you can get a DOI to cite and publish your protocol. The DOI is this idea of modular publishing, so you can publish discrete research outputs over time. This allows people to get credit for the work that they actually did in their contribution to a manuscript. So whereas before you might just have a paper, now with modular publishing, there's these discrete research outputs like an expression construct going into AdGene, a molecular structure going into the protein data bank, and protocols going into protocols.io. And here's a really nice example of how modular publishing can look in this Nature Communications paper from 2024, where you can see they have in the data availability section, AdGene, Protocols.io, and PDB all listed. This modular publishing is really important in terms of getting recognition because in a paper, someone might contribute novel method development, but their contribution to the paper may be kind of buried what they actually did. And in this case, in this paper, Kelsey Ramirez is a fourth author, but she contributed by developing and working on this protocol, and she's able to get first author credit for that protocol in her work in developing the protocol. Additionally, method transparency is really nice because sometimes papers can be behind a paywall or subscription based, but protocols published on protocols.io are open access and available freely for anyone to access at any time. You can also track your research throughout the life cycle. So we have this example of safe, affordable, and reproducible isolation of SARS-CoV-2 RNA from wastewater. There was a preprint published in February of 2021 in medRxiv, and at the same time, a protocol version 1 was published on protocols.io. The authors worked on further developing the protocol and the paper, and they published a new version of the protocol in August of 2021 and a PLOS One journal article with that version 2 in September of 2021. Since then, in October of 2022, they published a version 3 of the protocol as they figured out additional changes to really hone that protocol and make it even more usable and reproducible. And in the future, that protocol can be updated further or built upon by other researchers. And to just show you what that looks like, there's this dynamic permanence in publishing where someone who finds a paper that references a method on Protocols IO will be brought to the paper, to the protocol version, but given this pop-up that says there's a new version available, and they can view that newer version and compare and see how it differs from the original. Protocols.io is built to help you work with others and to facilitate research connections. You can share your protocols and connect with other researchers. And we have this quote from Professor Luciano G. Martellado from the University of Adelaide, who said that 80% of his recent collaborations came from a direct result of sharing protocols publicly on protocols.io. If you share your methods, not only can others find and use the methods, but they may realize, oh, this researcher is doing this technique that I could really benefit from and have the ability to reach out and work with you on a project. And Protocols IO is built to help you transition through different stages of your research. So on the public side, you can search and find for protocols. On the private side, you can optimize and organize. And then when you're ready, you can share and publish. And those protocols now become public and available for others to search and find. And the life cycle can continue. As I mentioned earlier, when you're planning, developing, and publishing your protocols, this is an investment of time that can really pay off because you're able to ensure that your details are kept in an organized central location. You're able to share with collaborators and get feedback, and you're also able later to share with others and get credit for your work. I'll transition now out of the slides and we're going to go into protocols.io. So for those of you who are familiar with the platform, you'll have an opportunity to see a little more of it. And for those of you who have never seen protocols.io before, you'll get to see protocols.io for the first time. So give me 1 second. I'll stop sharing and close the PowerPoint and pull up protocols.io. 1 second as my computer switches screens. Apologies. Should be sharing now. Okay. Does someone mind putting into the chat just to let me know if it is sharing because it is showing up as a black screen for me. Great. Okay. Thank you. So this is Protocols IO. For those of you who have been on the platform before, you may be familiar with this welcome page where you can bring structure to your research. You can watch a little video going through the basics of Protocols IO, and you can search for search through over 26,000 reproducible methods by a keyword or a researcher. If you're interested in just kind of browsing the site, you can also scroll down and look at some of our featured protocols and see some examples. And scroll further, see some quotes from our users, and some of our featured workspaces as well. I'm logged into my account, so my account icon is here, but if you are not logged into your account or if you haven't created an account yet, you'll see a prompt to sign up or log in. Once you have an account, you'll have access to a file manager where you'll create a workspace or already be in a workspace that you share with others. And I am a protocols.io power user at this point, so I have many workspaces and multiple organizations that I'm part of. But likely, if you're joining protocols.io, you'll either have just one workspace and one organization, or you may just have a few. And I want to take a minute just to explain how organizations work. For those of you who are part of a premium organization, you'll see on the side here under this building icon, an organization that's just your name. This would be if you are invited to any workspaces that do not exist within your premium organization. So Protocols IO is a premium organization. I see the organization present here, but my name and my personal organization has workspaces that aren't part of the Protocols IO umbrella. And then all of my workspaces that are within the Protocols IO umbrella appear in my Protocols IO workspace. So these are workspaces that I own as a premium Protocols IO user. You can organize your different protocols by folders, and this is the file manager where you're able to view all of your private and public files. When you come over to the side to look at your workspace, if you click the workspace profile, this gives an overview of the timeline of your workspace, any public protocols. So in this case, I have a published coffee preparation protocol, public members, discussion, resources, news, and impact. And impact is really important as you're publishing protocols. You'll potentially get citations of your protocols, views of your protocols. And so the number of citations and the number of views of the public protocols will appear here. And you can use that to kind of demonstrate what effect you're having in your open protocol sharing. As an administrator of my protocol from either the as an administrator of my workspace from the workspace profile, I can come into administration and click members. And this is where I can manage who's part of my workspace, who has access to my workspace. And so I have my other account, which is the Rory McCabe account, has access to my workspace as a member. And if I wanted to, I could change that user to an admin so that they could regulate the settings, invite other members. And then I could invite additional members to my workspace by inviting either with a link or by email address. The other thing I'll just mention, because Protocols IO is built really as a place that you can share and work with others, if you come to the sidebar here and go under your workspace administration to the, sorry, I have to move the screen slightly, to the settings, you're able to make changes to the profile, the information of the workspace, any description, and then in the security, you can change whether the workspace is available publicly, privately. And if you make the workspace public, it could be public so that others can view the workspace, but they could only join by invitation only. They could join by requesting to join, or they could join anytime they see the workspace automatically. So you can really choose how you want others to be able to access and join your workspace. And then again, if you come to membership and access, you can get an invitation link and allow members to invite anyone to the workspace. And down here in the workspace folder, when you click manage access, you can manage what your members and your admins are able to do, whether they're able to share files, whether they're able to publish files, move files, and copy files to locations. So this is just a really quick overview of a workspace, but once you're getting started, if you want to start collaborating and working with others, you'll want to come in and look at the settings and potentially modify those. I'll go back now into the file manager. So in the workspace, this is that workspace folder, file manager. It might look really familiar, like a typical file manager to you. And this is where you can store your files. And it shouldn't be too much of a barrier to entry to get started with protocols.io. So if you click this little raccoon down here, you'll see we have a few suggestions of ways to create protocols: generating with AI, making a fork or copy, converting an existing protocol, or using the editor. So I'm going to start by talking about converting an existing protocol. In this case, I have my immunohistochemistry protocol.doc that I developed during my PhD. If I open my Word document here, you can see this is a Word document that has all of the steps, little notes to myself about where in the lab the materials are. And I'm not going to scroll too far because I have a username and password at the bottom here. But I uploaded the Word document into the file manager, clicked the document, and then you'll see on the sidebar here this create a new protocol from this file with our protocolify. Once you click that, you're able to convert the PDF document or any other file type into a protocols IO formatted protocol. And this takes just a few minutes to create once you hit convert. I'll make a note here also that the example I'm showing is a typed up Word document, but I've also tested this and have others test this with handwritten protocols. So if you've been writing your methods down in a lab notebook, you can take a picture and upload that JPEG, and this converter does a really good job of converting that into a protocol. Uh, you'll look here at the IHC protocol. And so this has added in my individual steps that I put from my Word document and takes me through each section, deparaffinization, destroying endogenous peroxidase, step by step. And this did a really nice job of converting, and you'll want to make sure that you actually go through and double check just to make sure, because sometimes depending on how your original protocol was formatted, the AI importer might not quite understand what you meant to be a step versus a guideline or material. And so you want to make sure that all the materials ended up in the correct place. I'll note also, because there are different sections here, I have a table of contents, and I can easily jump between the different sections with my table of contents by clicking on one of them, and it will take me to those steps. With a little extra work, you can add in components to your protocol, and this allows the protocol to be runnable in a really intuitive way, and also allows you to add some small details. For example, here I added safety information that all incubation should be done in the chemical fume hood. Down here, I added an image of what a humidified chamber looks like, because that might not be clear to everyone. Here, I added a note that this is a range of antibody dilution and that should be optimized. And so you can add these additional components to your protocol in order to make it even more usable and dynamic. The other way that you can make a new protocol would be generating a protocol with AI. This is our AI generated protocol component or our protocol feature. This is really meant to be a way to help you get started thinking about a protocol. The AI model is trained off of Springer Nature experiments and is not something that's trained on just ChatGPT. So it's a really guided and unique AI experience because it is trained on only peer-reviewed methods, materials, and not just whatever exists on the internet. And as I mentioned, this is a way to get you started thinking about a protocol. So to make a protocol with the protocol generator, you'd go in, sorry, let me go back for 1 second. You'd go to new protocol and create a new protocol by clicking continue. And then you'll get this blank protocol here, and you can click refine a protocol and type in um, a prompt for the AI assistant to generate a protocol draft for you. And then you'll want to go through the protocol draft and edit and refine and think about how to better develop your experiment. And I'll mention in putting together the protocol draft, a poor prompt would be something like a protocol for immunohistochemistry, and a good prompt would be something like outline an immunohistochemistry workflow for paraffin-embedded tissues on slides, including antigen retrieval, typical antibody dilution ranges, controls, and common troubleshooting. And by giving the AI tool a more detailed prompt, it's better able to pull the resources and better able to give you a really good prompt to work from. And so when I put that prompt in, I get this output of this immunohistochemistry workflow, which will take 1 second to load. And just if I come over here to refine a protocol, I'm able to scroll up and see exactly where I put the prompt in. And then it outlined for me what materials, what reagents, what equipment, the procedure, and I clicked apply changes, and that automatically applied the changes into the protocol. And then I can go through and see if there's any changes that perhaps I would want to make or get started testing out this protocol. I'll note also that it adds into the reference tabs all of the references that were used in order to generate this protocol through AI. And it adds in any materials and potential troubleshooting as well, like weak or no staining, what to do in those cases. Another way that people will often get started using protocols.io is by creating a fork of an existing protocol. So this is a really nice example of a fork here. And just to take a step back, a fork is basically a variant of a protocol. So if you want to think about it like a recipe, if you were given a recipe for vanilla cake and you wanted to develop your own recipe for chocolate cake, you would make a fork of that vanilla cake recipe and then make changes to the steps, the ingredients, in order to develop the protocol for your specific use, in that case, chocolate cake. And so this protocol was developed January 22nd of 2020 because Josh Quick was able to make a fork of an Ebola virus sequencing protocol and develop his own version that was a COVID-19 sequencing protocol. So this was at the very start of the COVID-19 pandemic. And by making a fork, making a variant of an existing protocol, he was able to develop a new technique building off of this previous work. And what's really nice is that this fork links back to the Ebola virus sequencing protocol. So you're able to see um, the original protocol, which was one of his protocols, um, but it could have been someone else's. They're able to still get credit for their work being the baseline for this new technique. And over time, this protocol has developed and now is at version 4. And so you're able to view this 2024 version, but it still links back saying version 1 is forked from the Ebola sequencing protocol. I want to take a second also to mention that you can compare the protocol. So if you come to the three dots here and click compare, you're able to compare protocol version 4 with the original Ebola sequencing protocol, and you can see all of the steps that changed between that original Ebola virus and the most recent version of the forked COVID sequencing protocol. And some things remained the same, but a lot of things changed, but it was still built off of Josh's work. The other way that you can get started if you have existing protocols is by using our protocol entry service. This is available with a coupon code for anyone who has a premium protocols IO account through their institution, or you can also pay in order to have us enter your protocol for you. The way that it works is you'll go to the We Enter Protocol site, send us your protocol, you'll upload the file here and click to submit. And just note that the starting price is $50, but publication is free. You'll receive a quote for how much we think that it would cost for us to import and format your protocol for you. You can approve that, send it to us. And then we'll proceed forward and import your protocol, format it with components in the step-by-step method, and eventually send it to you for ownership once you're happy with what we've done. And then you can continue to edit your protocol as you see fit. Let me go back to the file manager now. And then the very last way to get started is entirely from scratch. So if you go to new and protocol, you can create a new protocol and you can just start from a blank slate. If you have new steps that you want to add in, you can type those in. You could also insert steps from text if you do have text written in some places. And here is where you can add in various components like amounts, concentrations, temperature, and really get your protocol in a format that allows you to work a lot with it. I'm going to go back for a minute here to the immunohistochemistry protocol to just explain why it's so important to add some of these components. So not only do components allow you to uh, see kind of safety information, notes, pictures, but components allow the protocol to be runnable and dynamic in a way that allows you to go through the protocol as if it's a checklist when you're working on it in your lab. So on any protocol that's public or that you have private access to, when you're viewing the protocol, you'll see this run button and you'll click run, and then you can have a folder with run records or choose where you want your run record to go, and then click start run. And now because I've added in components to my run, I'm able to click the timer button and run timers within my protocol. I'm able to mark steps as complete as they finish, and they'll be marked with when they were completed and the timestamp, who they were completed by. I can add a comment in. So in this case, this is a 60-minute timer. Maybe I only had the timer go for 10 minutes early due to XYZ, and add that comment in. I'm able to make scaling of the protocol. So because I've added in amount components, if I am using this protocol, which was developed for a single slide tub, which could hold 5 slides, and I wanted to do an experiment with 15 slides, then I would come to the top here, click scale protocol and scale by a factor of 3. And now all places that there was an amount component are scaled for this specific day on this specific run. And as I mentioned, you can go through and mark steps as done and kind of treat this as a checklist. The nice thing about runs as well is that if you get to a point in your protocol, for example, here where we have incubate overnight, you can mark that as done and leave, close the computer, close the protocol, close the run entirely. And now when I come into my file manager and I go to the folder that the run record is in, I'll see this April 13th run record that's incomplete. And when I click that run record now, I can click resume, and I'm able to restart what I was doing with the points that I've already finished marked as complete and pick back up where I left off. So I left off at the overnight incubation. I can start now on the secondary antibody. I can also share this run record with my colleagues. So if I were to go home after leaving an incubation overnight and wake up tomorrow with a terrible cold, I could ask my coworker to pick up where I left off by telling them either find it in the run records in the workspace if they're already part of this workspace, or coming in, clicking share, and sending the protocol to them and adding shared access so they can pick the run record up and keep going and make any changes. I'll note here also that you can edit steps. So if I have, incubate with the reagent appropriate for your primary species, I could click edit and I could write in that this was a rabbit species for the day and save that. And once you're finished with the run, you can click finish run. It will no longer be editable. And you'll now have this completed run record. Let me refresh my page for 1 second. And hold on, I see a few questions coming in. I'll get to, I see multiple questions, so that's great. I'll get to this toward the end. But the completed run record is now available, and I can export this run record as a PDF to my computer, to Box, Google Drive, Lab Archives, or any of these other apps that we have direct integrations for. So if you have one of these lab notebooks or other ways that you store electronic lab notebooks or other ways that you store your laboratory records, you're able to directly export to these. And if you have a different one that's missing, you can request that app there, and we'll see if we're able to create an integration. Coming back now to the workspace folder. Um, the other thing with the run record is that you can make a fork from run. So if I were developing a protocol from my immunohistochemistry run, but I was developing it for a very specific experiment, maybe it wasn't paraffin sections, it was a different kind of section, or maybe I was developing immunofluorescence based on my immunohistochemistry protocol. I could do a run of that protocol, develop the protocol, and make any changes. And once that run is successful and I've finished that run record, I could make a fork from the run. Let's say in this case that I was actually updating it to be a immunofluorescence protocol. I can continue. And now this will create a fork from that successful run. So I'm able to have protocol development actively occurring through my work in this workspace. My internet is slightly slow today, so I'm actually going to stop that just so that I don't have any issues with the internet crashing. Um, and I'll take the time now to mention also the idea of publishing a protocol. So let's say that I've developed my protocol, I've done protocol runs, I've used this now for a manuscript that I'm ready to publish and share with the world. When I'm viewing the protocol here, take 1 second to open, um, you'll see let me show a different protocol because that one actually is a version. You'll see at the top, publish, reserve DOI, post draft, sign. So reserving a DOI is a way that you can reserve the DOI for your protocol, make it citable, have the exact citation of the protocol, but it's still private. And so this can be linked to a manuscript that's under review or that's still being tweaked. And perhaps you might realize that there are changes that need to be made to the protocol itself. When you reserve the DOI, you're able to go back later and make some edits. It's not yet permanent. Once you are ready to publish and make the protocol permanent and citable, then you'll click publish and publish the protocol, and it will become publicly available, which you can see will appear with this globe icon. You'll have this DOI that's available. In the metadata tab, you'll also see a protocol citation with the list of the author's names, the title of the protocol, the DOI. And if this is linked to a manuscript, you can add your linked manuscript under manuscript citation so that anyone using the protocol not only cites the protocol, but also cites the connected manuscript. And you'll see here as well that we add in a link to the manuscript that the protocol is connected with so that if someone's viewing the protocol, they can click that link and be brought to the paper that the protocol is from or that the protocol is connected to. The other benefit of publishing and having a citable protocol is that now when anyone else uses this protocol, they can cite the protocol as well, and that will appear in this metrics tab, so you can see how often your protocol is being used by others. And as I mentioned, you can make versions of a protocol as well. So in this case, this cut and tag direct protocol was developed version 4 connected to the Nature Communications paper. But if someone were to come in to this version from Nature Communications, they'll actually get this pop-up letting them know that there is a new protocol version available. And they can view that new version version 5 and see what changes were made by the authors when they were developing the protocol. The very last thing that I want to mention, and then we'll go back to the slides, and I really want to leave a lot of time for questions, is that Protocols IO isn't just for wet bench biology protocols. I come from a biochemistry, biomedical sciences background, so my examples were a lot of immunohistochemistry, but we really welcome protocols from other fields. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this into the chat right now for anyone who would like to look at the example of protocols, but you can go through and view protocols in molecular biology, archaeology, chemistry, physics. We even have some citizen science or education protocols available here as well. So don't feel that you're limited in your ability to contribute to protocols.io if you work in a field that's not biology, biochemistry, just because those were the examples that I showed today. So let's come back into the slides. Stop sharing for 1 second. I have the new screen to show. Give that 1 second. Okay. So you should see my slides again. As I mentioned, it's not just wet lab methods. So I shared the example across disciplines, but there's a few additional examples here that when you get the slides, you can click through and look at: electronics, environmental sciences, archaeology, and so forth. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning as well, organizations encourage protocols.io. We have several institutional partners that offer premium protocols.io to their researchers, and you can find those on our site. And if you're a member of one of those institutions, you get free access to premium protocols.io through your institution. But also, we are part of Springer Nature, but we are publisher agnostic. So we have over 1,000 journals that recommend use of Protocols.io, and these are not just Springer Nature journals. It is recommended to have Protocols.io for your method section, as you're able to add a lot more detail than you might be able to add in a typical method section. And it's also openly available to anyone who's trying to replicate your methods. We have multiple funders that recommend using Protocols.io as well, some of whom are listed here. And today's talk was just a quick introduction about who we are, what Protocols.io is, and how you can get started using Protocols.io. But once you've made an account and once you're getting started using the platform, I encourage you to go to the Help Center, where you can view short articles about sharing private protocols, creating a protocol, any FAQs that you might have. We also have very short 1 to 2 minute tutorials. We have additional upcoming webinars. So today's webinar is an introduction. At this same time zone next month would be a tips and tricks webinar, which goes a lot more into detail about the individual components, how you can add those into your protocol, what the benefits of them are. And then in June, at this time, it would be our publishing webinar on how to publish protocols. We have all of our webinars recorded, and you can access those through this website on past protocols. And we're also happy to have a one-on-one personal demo. We have a calendar available with multiple time slots throughout the week where you can meet with one of us one-on-one. And if you have any questions, you can email info@protocols.io. And so now I'll take time to shift over to questions. I can always hop back on the demo if anyone needs me to show anything in protocols.io. And I request that you give your feedback about today's webinar. I've just put the link to the form in the chat, and you can also scan the QR code if you want to. And let us know what we can improve, what you'd like to see in the future. And so I'll leave that up for 1 second. And I see a few questions, so I'll get started with the first one, which is how can we publish protocols built on protocols.io? Yes, so let me come in. Should still be able to see my screen. So to publish protocols built on protocols.io, you'll go through by clicking the publish workflow, and you'll need to complete your protocol in order to publish. You'll need to make sure you have an abstract of at least 1 to 2 sentences. Um, this can be much longer as well. It doesn't need to only be 1 sentence. You'll need to add in any funder information or say that this doesn't apply to protocols, add authors and their affiliations, um, add any um, notes such as the protocol type, the protocol status. If you want to discard protocol comments, then you'll go through marking what workspaces you want the protocol to be featured in. So this is when you're looking at the workspace profile. You'll see published protocols here. So if you're a member of multiple workspaces, you can choose multiple workspaces to feature. And I have just lost the tab that I was in. There we go. And then you'll go through a preview and finally a confirmation where you have to say, yes, I confirm that we are ready to publish and that everyone listed agrees. So it's not possible. Well, it is possible, but it's really, really difficult to accidentally publish. The only way to accidentally publish is to not pay attention to what you're doing here. But once you've gone through this workflow, it will be submitted, and some of us will review the protocol to ensure that it looks complete, that there aren't any errors, it's not pseudoscience, and then the protocol will be published and made available. Um, I'm going to stop share for now, just so I can see the questions a bit better. The next question was, how are protocol redundancies managed? If I understand the question correctly, that's probably about how do we handle multiple protocols that are quite similar. And we're okay with protocols that are similar being published on the site, especially because sometimes the way I do immunohistochemistry might be totally different than how someone else does immunohistochemistry. So we have multiple immunohistochemistry protocols, and that would allow me to cite what I've actually done in my paper rather than citing what someone else did and then saying, but with these 5,000 modifications, because we really want your exact detailed methods in order to have reproducible research. If you are publishing a fork of someone else's work or you're publishing a version of your work where we don't see any changes have been made, we'll flag that and contact you and say, hey, it looks like you're publishing an identical protocol, and please confirm that you've actually made changes, and we'll go through to make sure changes are made there. I hope that answers that question. Can protocols built on protocols.io be exported in .doc format? You can export protocols in a PDF format, but not in a .doc format. You would need to convert that over in another way. At the moment, you can only export in PDF format. Then we have a question, can a protocol be associated with multiple workspaces? For example, my institution has multiple workspaces and some will collaborate on a protocol. Yes, so you can have multiple workspaces listed in a protocol. Let me just finish going through the publishing workflow actually, because that will show you quite easily. So we should be sharing screen again, give it a second. There we go. So when I come to this workspace step, I have my protocol in the demos Mericka workspace because that's where it was created. But if I wanted to put it into my other Mericka workspace or my more testing workspace, I could select those. When you're looking at a protocol, if you only see one workspace here on the public site, that's because you'll only see public workspaces that are linked to the protocol. So it is possible that someone has published this protocol and put it into a private workspace, but not a public workspace. And so that's why it doesn't appear here. The other thing is if you see a protocol that you would like to be highlighted in your workspace, but you forgot to add it in, you can come here to the three dots and click Add to My Workspaces, and then you can search your workspace and add that protocol to your workspace, and now it will show up in the workspace profile here once you've done that. I see a hand, so I'm going to try to unmute you. Naul, I hope I've said your name correctly. You should be able to unmute yourself now. Naul, can you unmute? Hello? Maybe not. You can try maybe typing in chat or I'll try again. Ask to unmute. I can see you unmuted, but I can't hear you. Are you able to type into the chat instead, perhaps? And while you figure that out, if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to add it to the Q&A or in the chat. No question. Okay, no problem. I will lower your hand then. Great. Are there any other questions? If anyone needs anything that you think of as you're getting started after the webinar has concluded, I'll put it up again. That you can email either myself, Mericka.McCabe at protocols.io, or our info@protocols.io channel. Oh, I see chat is coming in. Second. Okay, all thank yous. You're welcome. And I hope that you are able to get started and get your protocols up there. And I challenge everyone to make an account and upload at least one protocol and reach out if you have any questions or need any assistance.